Welcome to Trekosophy, the Star Trek philosophy podcast. Joining me in the studio this evening, we have our technical guru, whose beard manages to run Windows and 5 other applications simultaneously to make this show happen. It's Chris McGee.
Haven't shaved it for 15 years.
And we've got our fearless leader, international philosopher extraordinaire, whose beard once made Socrates ponder the real meaning of life. It's Ben McLean.
Yes, women will adore and enemies will fear my amazing beard, which I will grow starting tomorrow.
And also joining us is critically acclaimed author, who is also known as the most interesting man in the world. He doesn't always grow a beard, but when he does, he drinks Dos Equis. It's Brendan Kirby.
If you're a man, you don't shave.
And I am Bill Allen, a.k.a. the bearded guy in the red shirt. And this is Trekosophy. And we're going to be talking about one of Riker's better episodes where he really got to shine because he was generally kind of flat as far as character development goes. But the episode Triangle Trade really did highlight or gave Riker a chance to shine.
Yeah, you really saw him assert himself. There's sort of that Nietzschean will to power.
Absolutely.
I don't recall him being anywhere nearly as forceful in previous episodes.
Well, it was. Well, I guess first we should have Brandon read the synopsis off of Memory Alpha.
Yeah, just so you're all brought up to speed in case you haven't seen the episode. Though who hasn't? It's the Next Generation. Okay, let's Memory Alpha. The Federation, trying to recover from its recent battle with the Borg at Wolf 359, begins repairs on the Enterprise D. In the meantime, the crew is given a 20-year-old freighter to bring justice to Orion slave pirates. Picard must confront memories of his own enslavement by the Borg in order to carry out his mission. Riker deals with his demotion from captain to commander.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree that Jonathan Frakes' acting in this episode was really great. I mean, I don't know. I'm not generally a huge fan of Jonathan Frakes, but he really did. I mean, really.
You're a fan of his beard, though, aren't you?
Yeah.
Oh, who isn't?
I mean,
yeah. Come on.
He really did seem to knock it out of the park on this one.
Oh yeah, this was the season 3, right? Season 2, season 3 cliffhanger was Best of Both Worlds, right?
No, that was 3 and 4.
3, 4. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the first episode of season 4, right after Best of Both Worlds Part 2. Right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, Picard wasn't fully healed. He still had some of those Borg implements on him.
Yeah, I like how they carried that over.
Yeah, they left him with a instead of a hand, he still had that mechanical hook, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the pincer thing. And also this is the first time we actually saw the Orions on Next Generation.
That's right.
We've seen them to some extent on every other Star Trek series. They were in the original series. They were at least referred to on Deep Space Nine. There was an episode about the Orion.
Yeah,
Syndicate.
there were a couple episodes on Deep Space Nine.
And
were there any in Voyager?
I don't remember.
I think they just got a mention because, I mean, Voyager was off away from all your standard aliens.
Yeah. Well, except the Borg showed up again. But.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm not much of a critique of the acting. Augustine famously wrote in the Confessions that we're so much more interested in how you say something rather than what's being said. Now, what was the actual message here? Picard is just really overcome with his enslavement. He really is bringing a very personal passion to his. Usually he's so detached when he's doing his moralizing, when he's up on his soapbox doing his preaching, but this was something that you could really tell was striking a chord with him. And that I thought was significant.
Well, I mean, wouldn't you start breaking down if every night you had nightmares about the people you killed out of your control?
Yeah, he had no will.
This
And
was
now. Go ahead, Bill.
No, I was going to say this was a interesting precursor to the movie First Contact, where they actually alluded to this episode again. Because I mean, in First Contact, Picard went back to being Captain Ahab and obsessed with killing all the whales. Because in this episode, he's obsessed with taking out these Orion slave traders, and you know, I mean, he's got the hook for the hand. I mean, he's just missing a peg leg and a pirate on his shoulder, but he's freaking Ahab all over again.
It was kind of blatant, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Wait, that would be a parrot on his shoulder. A pirate that puts another pirate on his shoulder. That'd be a little weird.
They have
I might.
small pirates.
Okay, well, I might bring up the there's more historical parallels going on in this episode than just the Captain Ahab stuff. The title of the episode, Triangle Trade, refers to an economic model that prevailed during the 18th and 19th centuries that made the North American slave trade profitable.
Huh.
Well, the historical import, I didn't even know that. I think that's...
Yeah, that's
there's so much that
too.
went into all the names of these episodes. You know, these were not Dollards writing it.
No, and I didn't even know about hardly any of them until I started reading Memory Alpha.
Yeah.
Okay, here's what they do. They'd start in the Caribbean, and they'd get sugar in the form of molasses, and they'd take the molasses up to New England, where it would get distilled into rum. And then the profits from the sale of the sugar would be used to purchase manufactured goods, which they would then take to West Africa, where they trade for slaves, and then they take the slaves to the Caribbean or the American South, and then pick up the molasses, and they'd go around and around in a triangle from where the slaves work to grow the molasses to New England, where they would change the molasses into money and get manufactured goods, and then they'd go to Africa and change the manufactured goods into slaves. And so the triangle that the slave ships made, that's where the title comes from. And it really was a terrible thing they were doing. I mean, it was a vicious cycle that perpetuated slavery in the Americas. And the theme of slavery and fighting against it, and the possibility of overreacting or fighting against it in a way that is out of proportion, as Picard does in this episode, actually goes back to the debates over slavery that took place in the 1850s. There was the radical abolitionist wing that wanted slavery abolished immediately, and if it took a war, then just declare war and turn the slaves into soldiers and do whatever it takes to end slavery. And then there were the more moderate anti-slavery gradualists, and Lincoln was one of these, who wanted to see that slavery would be on the course of eventual extinction, but who didn't want to instigate a war over it, because they thought that really wouldn't help in the long run. And if we could have done the gradualist way and not have had to have fought the Civil War, that actually might have been better. I mean, because the Civil War killed a lot of really good men on both sides. It really did. I mean, I'm all for the North. I mean, I'm a Republican. I like Lincoln. And of course, I'm anti-slavery. But the radical abolitionists sometimes went rather too far. And that it resulted in the Civil War, and the Civil War was just this huge explosion of violence. So you have to sort of balance out the concerns, is what I think this episode's trying to say.
Well, I think, is there not a similar level of guilt Yeah, I mean, you'll see this played out in the episode too. You don't want to veer too far off the course of the episode. But what was it? Marx's criticism was, when you treat people as commodities. I mean, that's the barbaric thing of slavery.
Yeah.
It might be worth mentioning too that the slavery that is depicted here in this episode hasn't yet got as far as Enterprise in our when we discussed Bound.
Right.
When we begin to realize that slavery in the Orion Syndicate isn't quite what we might think it is.
Oh, it was a
It
wonderful
isn't what it
twist.
seems, yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the.
But this is Next Generation. We haven't got that far yet.
I
Not
did
that
want to
deep.
point out, though, that the people going to war, you see the insanity that Picard has with his post-traumatic stress syndrome. You see... I don't know whether or not it's historically proven or not, whether the abolitionists could have achieved their goals through more humane methods.
It's not proven. I just wish they could have.
Yeah, well, that would have been nice.
Well, I mean, I
But-
wish the anti-slavery folks could have achieved their goals through more peaceful methods.
Well, I mean, in Picard's case,
Yeah.
though, I mean, they track down the Orions. They find their big planet where their base of operations is, and they move in for the attack. And the Orion ships go dipping down and start strafing all the slave pens. So Picard, that was what finally made him snap, and he's like, you know what? They're going to kill all the slaves anyway. Let's nuke them so they'll never have any more after this. And he was going to drop whatever that antimatter charge that Geordi built. He was going to drop it and burn off the atmosphere of the whole planet.
Well, until you see the bearded wonder, hence all the beards. If you were wondering, for all the listeners, if you're wondering what the beard references were, it's because we're all in love with Riker's fantastic display when he intervened.
Well, I mean,
This was
That's where
the
it came
key
from.
scene.
the
for
whole
it.
episode was like that. I mean, Picard would show up for a little bit and then go off to his quarters and just brood. I mean, he was.
it was
my
like
arm
he was
hurts.
like Janeway.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And
yeah,
he
they're
left
very much
Riker in charge, and Riker's kind of he's kind of flipping out a little bit because he's still getting over what happened in Best of Both Worlds. If you guys remember, right before it started, Riker was offered the captain's seat on the USS
Melbourne, yep.
Yeah.
and he turned it down. And then they go cruising into what's left of Wolf 359, and there's the Melbourne. And
Nice touch, too. I like that.
it was a great, and you got to see that little Riker's heart sink in that scene because he's
Exactly.
crap. And then Riker gets the Enterprise, and he's captain because Picard is officially dead. And he's captain of the Enterprise and manages to beat the Borg. So he's sitting there this whole time thinking, maybe I should have done more. Maybe if I had been on the Melbourne, 400 people would still be alive. Which is why when they're tracking down these Orion pirates one by one, it's why he comes up with some of the odd things he comes up with to get things done. Like when he painted Data green so he could blend into the Orions and pretend to be part of the crew.
Yeah. There's a bunch of weird little things like that only show up for a minute in this episode. Like, there's this one part when Data is talking to one of the Orion male masters, and you see that this master Orion guy has this black thing on his face, and it's actually, if you zoom in, you can see it's actually one of the Borg eyepieces. And
Oh.
I
and
didn't
so
notice that.
so you're left wondering whether did they just sort of have a just reuse one of the props, or is this supposed to mean
Probably.
that the Orion Syndicate is actually being infiltrated by assimilated people? I mean, the Borg's trying to infiltrate it.
Like X-Borgs who are upset with the concept of their previous enslavement. Is that
Well,
what you're
either
getting at?
that or the Borg have figured out to be a little more subtle than they've been in the past. Out of, I mean, because I mean, they kind of contradict this interpretation later, but later in Star Trek, but I think at that point they might have been considering like having Borg infiltrators who have only a couple implants who would sneak into ships and sort of, so that might have been what they're trying to do, or maybe they were just cheap and they just decided to reuse one of the props from the last episode.
I think they were.
Yeah, I'm willing to bet the latter.
Yeah, I think they were reusing it because, I mean, especially
they do that a lot in these shows.
Yeah, in Enterprise, you saw some of the props, like the Orions were big into piercings and jewelry and like little bits of metal all over them. Like right there, I looked up Orions on Memory Alpha because when the episode first came out, I thought they called it Triangle Trade because the Orion Syndicate had a triangle for their logo, and I thought I'd see if I could find a picture of the logo. But they got a picture of an Orion male, and he's got metal all over his face and shoulders and stuff. That's all part of his outfit. So,
yeah, I was thinking that one of the things this episode does is it kind of plays on the sort of it makes a psychological parallel in Picard's mind between the slavery of the hive mind of the Borg and the slavery of the Orion Syndicate, and he's perceiving these two as kind of being the same thing. We find out later in Enterprise that they're not quite the same thing, but that's how he kind of perceives it in this episode.
Did anyone find Picard's character off in multiple ways on this episode? I mean, by that, do you remember when they were beaming over to the freighter for the first time? Didn't he seem a little flirtatious with the transporter chief? Was that just me, or did anybody else pick up on that?
I don't know, but
it was a little bit out of character.
He was.
I know.
It was like
starting to get a little uncomfortable.
It's like I think he was trying to put on a brave front. Like, sure, I had my brain sucked out by the Borg, and I had all these electronic parts put in me, and I feel like crap. But no, I'm fine. I am Picard. I can deal with it. So yeah, I mean, when he's sitting there winking at the transporter chief.
You find a reason for it. I just blame the writers.
Well, I saw something.
There's virility there. There is virility.
I saw something that was even a little bit more strange than that. There's this one scene where Patrick Stewart appears to be starting to grow a little bit of hair.
Yeah, okay. I was sort of thinking Quark and more in his hair growth supplement. I don't know. It started to get a little bizarre.
So, where are we on time here?
Well, we've got to talk about the finale.
We got the big showdown between Riker and Picard.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because Riker's he's painting Data green. He's dressing Worf in these weird furs to make him look like some kind of crazed, bulky trader dude, and sending everybody off on these undercover missions because he doesn't want to screw up. He's determined to do something. And then Picard steps up, and Picard is, I'm going to do something. I'm going to nuke the planet. And then
okay, but I've got to quote Barry Goldwater. As the Canadian, I got to bring up Goldwater. When Picard is nuking the planet, who didn't think of that monumental line that extremism in the pursuit of liberty is no vice, and moderation in the pursuit of justice is no virtue? Didn't that there was something so Goldwaterish about his approach to it. Yes, he was extreme. Yes, he was going to nuke the planet. But why justice? Injustice is greater than the environmental consequences.
So you don't think he was going too far?
Can you go too far in the pursuit of justice? Can you go too far in the pursuit of liberty?
I think
these are legitimate questions.
Yeah, I thought we kind of established that you could in our Odo episode. I thought.
Yeah.
Well, this is the Picard episode. Well, I don't know. I was impressed by the episode as a whole.
I mean, we saw what happened to Picard in First Contact, the movie, when he was thinking he was pursuing justice, when all it turned out to be was just a Captain Ahab revenge.
Well, yeah, this was the movie, and they only had 1 hour to develop this with a limited budget and to deliver.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the concept of using a 20-year-old freighter to bring justice to Orion slave pirates, Riker dealing with his demotion, it kind of sounds like a joke. I mean, it was a great episode, though. We can all agree on that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, story-wise, it was great. But FX-wise, this is one the fans have always hated. Because they went weird with the special effects. Like, you could see...
Yeah, they did come off of the really big budget episode.
And this is like...
You can forgive them.
And you could see the Millennium Falcon in the background of one of the shots when the freighter's pulling up to this trade outpost.
Yeah, that was over the top.
Okay, so all of a sudden, I mean, they just finally decide to let the Orion slave girls go.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, not
the Pharaoh has finally capitulated to Moses, and they're going to let the Orion slave girls go. What was it they were going to give them, Bill? You said earlier
40 strips of gold and a shuttlecraft for each one.
Gold pressed latinum.
Yeah.
The gold's worthless in Star Trek.
Right.
So after that, they get there's a sort of weird Deus Ex Machina ending where this signal comes in, and it's a transporter signal. And Geordi can't figure out what it is, but then his visor spots that it's a transporter signal. And so he routes it to the freighter's transporters. And O'Brien is helping him. And there's a lot of interference. There's some kind of weird, mysterious force that is causing a bunch of interference.
Remember the first time I saw that? It was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the best times when they have a whole lot of technobabble, but it still builds like suspense.
It's very believable.
And then, I mean, O'Brien says he has a bad feeling about it, but Geordi says you can do it. And so they keep trying, and they keep rerunning the signal through the pattern buffers. And then all of a sudden, the force that's been causing all this interference, there's a disturbance in the force, which enables them to route the transporter signal finally to be materialized. And it's this weird-looking alien who looks nothing like any of the aliens we've ever seen on Star Trek before. And he says, Mr. Jar Jar Binks is on the Enterprise.
That, I thought, was the climax of the episode.
Absolutely.
That made the episode.
Oh, yeah.
Worlds are colliding on the heels of Best of Both Worlds.
Yeah.
Ben, what were your thoughts?
Well, I was thinking that a lot of the best Star Trek episodes start with a premise that could have been a joke. I mean, some of the best ones, like
Spock's Spring.
Yeah, but like all of the major characters on DS9 decide to form a baseball team. Now, I mean, that sounds like a joke, but that's a real episode, and it was an awesome episode.
It was an awesome episode, but when did it come out? It came out in the 7th season on April 1st. It felt like they were fooling us. That's what it felt like to me.
But it turned out to be so good.
Oh, it was a great... As was this episode.
Yeah.
A
bit of an April Fool. But a great episode.
Definitely. And definitely worth doing a Trekosophy about. So many deep and profound... so many deep and profound themes going on here.
And if any of you studio exec types are listening to this show, the four of us, we are available for script writing gigs if you want. I mean, we came up with this and it was great, okay? Imagine what you would get if you paid us. I'm available for the third new Star Trek film.
Yeah,
you guys
yeah.
like that scene with Worf in a tutu? Wasn't that a great?
Michael Dorn, and he thinks it's some kind of math problem. Like a 2-2.
I know this.
4.
And you've been listening to Phil Trek on NNPR, brought to you by Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. Remember, Phil Trek is a balanced part of your complete breakfast. Ask your doctor if Phil Trek is right for you. Thank you for listening. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, email us at trekosophy@gmail.com, and tune in next week for more exciting adventures and misadventures, and see if we'll ever find out, just answering that deepest of all philosophical questions: how many licks does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop? Thank you and good night.